walked into the open space knowing he was a monster that others would see as horrible, but that he'd become to buy his freedom. Shrieks echoed from around the witches' circle. They didn't recognize him. No one ever would. They screamed, afraid of what he was. Many ran, scared, but Wizard strode on, confident. He didn't stop until he was standing squarely in front of the woman who made him what he was. "Mefora Payne," Wizard said in a clear and loud voice. "I'm ready. Tell me what you demand of me." The woman, who was more soulless than Wizard and more lost than any other, smiled. But it defied what smiles should do. It made one think of evil and harm and not of goodness and laughter like one would usually feel from such a gesture. "We pause time," she said in a commanding voice. "We pause time for all magicians. And we start the war I've wanted forever." Chapter 2. Dining Room, Beaufont Residence, West Hollywood, California, United States. "What about Stephen?" Elvis asked, picking at a piece of pineapple, pretending it was on the menu even though he was never going to eat it. Rose rolled her eyes as she took a bite of her toast. "Is this when you wonder if he's even?" "Why would I care about that?" the red dragon asked, floating in his chair, twirling his tail and looking mischievous. He tossed the pineapple slice in the air and watched as it landed on his plate with a splat. "Because even Stephen and all that name business you keep going on about," Rose answered. He huffed, lapping up his orange juice like a dog. With specks of juice on his mustache, he turned to her and shook his head. "I'm so over that. It was so last week. I was literally wondering about my friend Steve. He's got a thing." "What kind of thing?" Clark asked, buzzing into the dining room but having heard the majority of the conversation from the kitchen where he was preparing the rest of breakfast. "Well, he took a wager on a bet, but I bet he'll work out even," Elvis replied. "That's Stephen. He always works out even." Rose really rolled her eyes now. "I knew it!" "What?" Elvis asked, feigning innocence. Rose turned her full attention to her father. "Hey, Dad, if you can, will you—" Something weird had happened recently. When Rose went to talk to her father about being a demigod, she discovered he didn't remember her telling him about it. Elvis explained via the elders that the information had been blanked from Clark's memory. Apparently, because he did a huge renovation spell after learning something critical, he forgot. It was the price of magic. So as hard as it was to tell her father this huge secret the first time, now she had to do it a second time and pretend like it was the first. He paused, looked at her, seemed to consider the situation. "What do you need, Rose?" She patted the seat beside her. "I want to talk to you, but you're always buzzing about, and I was hoping to have a moment of your undivided attention." Clark Beaufont seemed nervous suddenly, but then again appeared somewhat happy to be given a break, even if it was from work he assigned himself. He pulled off his apron and feigned a smile. "Of course, I can devote all of breakfast to you. What do you want to talk about?" He took a seat and smiled anxiously at her. "The fact that she's a demigod," Elvis blurted out between bites. Rose spun around to him. "What the— How dare you?" He rolled his eyes. "You're going to take 100 years to get to that. I sped up the process. Now we can get to talking." Rose rotated back in her father's direction to see the reaction she expected. He was perched on a chair and looking white as a ghost suddenly. "You're a what? How do you know? Are you sure? What does this mean?" Clark asked in quick succession. Before Rose could reply, Elvis answered for her. "She's a demigod. Mama Jamba told us, Papa Creola confirmed, yes, we're sure, and we don't know what this means yet," the Chinese dragon said casually, answering each of the questions efficiently. Clark seemed to take a moment to absorb this, and then he shook his head as he clasped his hands together, his head of blonde and silver hair down. "This revelation brings more questions," Rose nodded. "I know. I just told..."